When I started this journey, I was simply trying to find out how much hosts made. But what I ended up finding was a power struggle, a war of words, corrupt Pmods, host botting, and the most toxic environment in the entirety of old school RuneScape. This is the secret underworld of hosting. The first thing you find when you go into any of the hosts' home in World 330 is just how amazing they are. They have absolutely everything that you can possibly buy, and no expense at all has been spared. And this comes at a cost. And to get everything that everyone will expect you to have in a house to host, it's going to cost you a minimum of 17 million GP just to get the 83 in construction. And if you want to go to 99 construction quickly, it will cost you 193 million GP to do it. And of course, that's just the construction level. That's before you include things like the occult altar, which is currently 8.7 million GP. The crystalline portal nexus is another 5 million GP. And if you decide to put a hellhound in the basin, that alone is another 5 million. The rejuvenation pool will set you back another 2 mil. And if you add in a blisk, that's going to be another 5.5 mil. And that is before you add in any theme. A volcanic theme for every room costs you another 8.8 million that you put it in. And of course, there is also the mounted coins, 100 million GP to have a table with some coins on it. So what exactly do you get for your money? Well, for 83 construction, an ornate pool, gilded altar, a blisk, altar of the occult, portal nexus, a workshop, and all of those things that people expect you to have is going to cost you at least a cool 60 million GP. And of course, not many people are going to go into a house that just has the basics. They're far more likely to go to if you have absolutely everything. So if you build yourself the max, get yourself 99 construction, some mounted coins, all rooms, dungeon, decorative items, and the above, that's going to set you back a whopping 300 million GP. Once you've spent all of that money, you are of course going to want to return on it fairly quickly. But so do all of the other hosts, and this is where it gets extremely competitive. Even though there is now an advertising board, there are still accounts spamming host names outside the portal in order to get as many people in as possible. Because how many people use your home is going to decide how much you make. These accounts are breaking the rules by using auto typers, but without one, you simply aren't going to get much business. So hosts are forced to use an alt to advertise, break the rules and risk the account, or pay someone around 500k per hour to do it for them. But they're not the only ones advertising here. You also have the bone running community that has an interest in hosts. Communities that offer bone running services to those training prayer also use these hosts, and they offer the hosts alliances, where they advertise the host in return for the host promoting their Discord. This has ended up with an area where hosts compete against hosts, Discords compete against Discords, and even hosts against Discords, and it has now reached boiling point in this feud. And to make things even worse, corrupt Pmods have found out, and they are offering their services to mute every other host that is advertising apart from yours if you pay them to do it. This one Pmod alone offered to do this not just once, not twice, but 3 times, making absolutely clear what his intentions were. And it looks like this offer has been taken up by at least one of the hosts, as every single host I spoke to reported that almost every time they got muted, certain hosts didn't. This is a different Pmod, and I have blanked out their names simply because I can't prove that this is what they are doing yet, but should Jagex wish to contact me, I will happily assist them with it. In a world where you have to spend hundreds of millions, where people are forming alliances against you, and Pmods are taking advantage of the system, giving an unfair advantage to those as corrupt as they are, this has quite frankly become toxic, and this is just 1% of the messages I have been sent by various hosts, showing what goes on behind the scenes. I've put in timestamps if you want to skip these to the next chapter. However, there is one thing that actually everyone agreed on. Every single person I spoke to said that some hosts were botting, and even some of the bone running discords acknowledged this as well. The biggest factor of all that contributes to how many people use your home is how often you are online, so something like this would be such an advantage. I knew I needed to check it out to see if it was true. First person's home I went to was ex-Grace's, and initially I simply observed for a while to see what she did. For the best part of a day, she didn't reply to or acknowledge anyone that stood next to her or spoke to her apart from twice in that entire time. She also had a level 3 called Lightning Cache. It would light each burner and hide under the pile of people in the altar so that you couldn't click on the account. So I decided to start trading Grace. Surely a host would have trade on and would respond to it for tips, but to my surprise, the trade wasn't accepted. So I decided to trade her level 3, since it was actively running the burners, surely it would reply, but still, the trade wasn't accepted. So I tried talking to Grace and didn't get any reply from her at all. Someone even told me to stop giving her a hard time. The next thing I did was to buy a bond and make it tradable, and I offered it to both Grace and Lightning Cache. Unsurprisingly at this point, neither accepted it, but 3.5 minutes later, to my surprise, I got a message from Grace saying, "Sorry, I was just making a TikTok." Then another message a few minutes later saying, "Thanks for the offer though." The messages I had received from the host and Discord had said that they thought those botting were either using a way to change their IP so Jagex couldn't trace them, or were auto-typing or auto-clicking to keep themselves logged in whilst the alt, lighting the burners, is botting. That way, if they are caught, it is for a lesser crime that isn't likely to end up in a ban, and if the alt is caught, they simply make a new one. So I decided to try something to see if I could prove that the two accounts were linked, and I messaged Grace saying, "Trying to give it to Lightning Cache, she's only a level 3. And within 10 seconds of sending that message, Lightning Cache traded me. In the rules of RuneScape it says, encouraging or helping others to break the rules is as bad as breaking them yourself. And if you encourage someone to break a rule, we treat it as if you are also breaking the same rule yourself. The next house I went to was Workless, and the information I was told was that one person runs the Workless, Jiggling and Med School accounts. Again, I observed a similar pattern of not replying to people or accepting trades and simply standing in the same place with another account lighting the burners. So I again tried to offer the bond to these accounts when something strange happened. This time I didn't get a message, and instead the runner stopped lighting the burners and they ran out. That means anyone trying to use the altar, the most popular reason people use hosts, was getting far less XP when offering bones. For the next hour, the burner was rarely lit, with the exception of a couple of times when people using the altar did it themselves. And during this period, if you tried to enter Jiggling or Medschool's house, the accounts that people said were linked to Workless, it would say the player is offline or has privacy mode enabled, even though they were still on the advertising board for that hour. Finally, Workless sent a message after about an hour saying, "I have to go," and everyone was kicked from the house. And when I immediately checked the board, both Jiggling and Medschool went offline at exactly the same time. So, if you're thinking about hosting, after you've spent hundreds of millions making a home that people want to visit, set up an account that breaks the rules to advertise, have people come into your home and spam hate and got muted by a corrupt Pmod, you may just end up making around $500,000 to $1 million per hour. Then if by some miracle your medication is strong enough to tolerate all of this that's going on for over 6 months until you get a base of players that regularly use you, then you may end up making around 1.5 million GP per hour as per Elijah's video. And finally, if you are a burger short of a Happy Meal and can somehow stand all of the politics that come with hosting for a few years, then maybe, just maybe, there's a chance that the ex-host that claimed he made 7 million per hour is true. But I have found absolutely nothing at all to support that, but whatever they earn really isn't enough. So the next time you use a host, show them some love. Almost everyone uses them at some point, and most of them are innocent victims caught up in all of this, just trying to beat a corrupt system and make a little bit of GP. To the hosts and the altar community, until those taking far more than their share and those abusing the system are removed, the rest of you will always be fighting between each other over the scraps. Every single host I spoke to was actually really nice, and every single owner of the Bone Running Discord were always actively trying to resolve disputes. They were never the cause. Unfortunately, when these alliances are made public, you will always get people who don't understand that an agreement between a host and a Discord is just good business, and hosts are just competitors. It isn't, or it shouldn't be, personal. This has all escalated way out of control, and when I tell you 80% of the messages on here were aimed at one person and I only linked 1% of them, I know you will know who that is, and now that you have seen them, wouldn't you be frustrated? Wouldn't you be annoyed? Can you really blame his reaction? I blanked out most of the names on this video as I know most people just got caught up in a war of words, but if everyone doesn't work together, this will always be the most toxic environment since merge clans when we had trade restrictions. However, that's next week's video.